Hello everyone, Barguest Hobbies here, and welcome to this video on building a meta deck for as cheap as possible in the UK. This video is aimed at beginners. I will assume some very basic knowledge, like you understand the concept of Beyblade and you understand how to score. If not, there are plenty of great videos on that, but for now, I'm just going to dive right in. Before we start, I want to cover some very basic terminology, because you're going to hear me refer to a few things throughout this video, and if you're new, you may not completely understand what the normal term is. So I'm going to go through a real basic breakdown on how we refer to Beyblades in this hobby. This video will have timestamps, so you can skip ahead to suggested builds if you are already familiar with the breakdown and terminology of Beyblade X. We would read this as Arrow Wizard 480 GB. Breaking it down, we start with Arrow Wizard. This word always refers to the main metal blade, the top part that will be making contact. In this case, this blade is called Arrow Wizard. The next part to break down will be this part, which will always be two numbers separated by a hyphen. In this case, 480. This refers to the ratchet, or the center part. The numbers are easy to break down when you understand them. The 4 refers to how many protrusions a ratchet has. In this case, it has 4 protrusions. The 80 refers to the height when looking at it from the side. In this case, 80 means 8 millimeters. The final part will always be 1 or 2 letters. These two refer to the bit. The bit is this part at the bottom that controls how the blade spins and behaves. It will always be 1 or 2 letters, and these will always be unique to each bit. In this case, GB is abbreviation of gearball, which is what we call this bit here. When assembled, this is what Arrow Wizard looks like. All of these builds will be for a complete deck of 3 total Beyblades. The term deck in a tournament setting refers to a set of 3 Beyblades with no repeating parts. By repeating parts, we mean you can't have any parts that have the exact same name. In this case, if you were to run an Arrow Wizard 480 Gearball, you couldn't have another 2 Beyblades that had either an Arrow Wizard blade, a 480 ratchet, or a Gearball bit. Almost all tournaments will require 3 Beyblades to compete. Some tournaments will allow extra Beyblades to be substituted in. Some local tournaments might have more lax rules, but almost all competitive settings, you will require at least 3 Beyblades for a complete deck. Note that when we say no repeating parts, we only refer to the name. Colour is completely irrelevant. You can't have 2 480 ratchets just because they're different colours, for example. Before we move on, I want to cover the brand new CX line real quickly, because it does change up the way a blade's name works very slightly. In this case, this is the preview for Courage Drawn S660V. It's almost the exact same, except you'll notice you have this additional letter here. If you look at the main breakdown of the blade, it's the same. It's got a blade, a ratchet, and a bit. In this case, Courage Drawn S660V. So, why the S? That refers to something called the assist blade, or the auxiliary blade. In the newest system, which is Beyblade CX, the main blade is actually made up of 3 parts. A lock chip, which doesn't vary except for the picture, the main blade, or primary blade, which is the metal component, and the assist blade, also called the auxiliary blade. In this case, the blade is slash, or S. When put together, they form the main blade. Now, at this point in time, CX isn't really worth worrying about too much, as none of the listings here are going to include it, and CX is neither widely available nor has any particular blade being competitively viable. I'm just breaking this down, so if you see someone online talking about a blade and they have another letter in front of the ratchet, you understand what they're talking about. So with all that, let's get into it. As well as a full deck, all of these recommendations will include a means of launching your Beyblade. You might be able to save further money if you already own a quality launcher, but this video is really aimed at somebody who doesn't own anything and wants to get into the hobby and compete as cheaply as possible. A quick side note for those who don't know, these launchers you get with starter sets of Hasbro in the UK and the West are useless. They are weak. They have a bad gear ratio, which means that you get no additional power from gears inside of it, because there are no gears. It's just a single gear that grinds along the ripcord. These are not competitively viable, and really are an absolute last resort. You do not want to use these. You will be at a severe disadvantage. Moving on, I'm going to cover sources for the UK. Now, in the UK, your primary sources are going to be these four shops. It's going to be Amazon Online, Smith's Toys Superstore, Argos, and The Entertainer. These are generally going to be cheaper when you can go in-store. Sometimes there are discounts, sometimes there are price slashes or open box discounts and the like. Obviously, Amazon doesn't actually have a store, but it's worth shopping around. These four will sell most of the same products, but there are some exclusives. I'll be pointing out the best place to get each of these bits I can as we go. There are other options. Tesco Extra, B&M and Very all sell Beyblade products. However, in the case of B&M and Tesco Extra, it's not consistent and is a store-by-store basis, and Very's prices aren't anything interesting except when they have sales, so it's something worth keeping an eye on. Or if you lack a part, it's worth knowing it's somewhere you can visit. But these are more sort of, if you have one of these nearby you can visit, it's probably viable to go check them out. So, starting out with the absolute cheapest you can run a competitive deck, you're going to want to start with this twin pack of Bike Rock 360 low flat and Sting Unicorn 460 point. Bike Rock here, you don't need to make any changes to. Assemble it as seen on the back of the box. It is a copy of this blade, Kill Shark. By copy we mean the shape is very similar and has only been modified slightly. These are something Hasbro does in the West sometimes to create more product diversity, but it behaves almost identically. And this combination creates a really strong glass cannon build. Bike Rock / Kill Shark can KO even some of the most competitive blades on this combo, but it slows down very quickly. It's very much a hits hard, hopes to knock the opponent out, but is completely viable. Sting Unicorn here is an excellent balance blade, easily in the high B, low A tier. 460 is a ratchet that doesn't see much love from the community, but it is viable, it does work, and point is a good all-round bit. It's what we call a balance bit because it can perform both attack and stamina. If you look on Amazon, you can find this kit at time of recording for £12.60, and honestly, this is one of the best bargains you're going to get if you're completely starting out. There are no bad parts in this kit at all. In addition to them, you're going to want to pick up this kit, the Beyblade X Saw Phoenix 960 Gear Flat. Now this kit is sold in lots of places. Unless you find it discounted, it's always around the £17 mark. But this gives you two really interesting parts. The Saw Phoenix Beyblade, which comes with some amazing parts. The Saw Phoenix blade hits incredibly hard. It's still meta all this time later. 960, exact same story. It's a very tight, very small ratchet, which means it won't burst very easily. It's still used in meta combinations today. Gear Flat, while there are better bits, it's by no means terrible. It's a great attack bit. The only thing you're going to want to do is swap the point bit on Sting Unicorn with the Gear Flat on Saw Phoenix, and then you'll have Saw Phoenix 960 point, which is a good combo, and Sting Unicorn 460 Gear Flat. And the other really good thing about Saw Phoenix, as you've probably seen, is it comes with a string launcher. The string launcher here is great, it's really good for a beginner, and all of this will cost you $29.59 at time of recording. Now, there is an alternative to this build, and pay attention here because you're going to see this substitution happen a lot. The blade of Saw Phoenix may be substituted for this blade, Raw Tyranno 960 Gear Flat. Now you're going to notice immediately that the two parts down here are the exact same. We still got a 960 in the Gear Flat. The Raw Tyranno blade is much like with the Bike Rock. It's a mold variant on Phoenix Wing. It is a little different. It is slightly worse than Phoenix Wing for impact. It's still a great sort of mid to low A tier blade, but you might be wondering why would you bother going for Raw Tyranno if you can get Saw Phoenix, and that's because Raw Tyranno is £8, and with that saving you can buy for £9 the Beyblade X Winder launcher. Now, really, it comes down to a preference on winder versus string, But general consensus is winder launchers will give you a little bit more power, and string launchers will give you a little bit more accuracy with your launch. It comes down to preference, but the cost of the winder launcher and raw Tyranno together comes to £17. So they can basically be substituted. It's up to you. Do you want a slightly less effective but still very good main blade in exchange for a more powerful launcher, or do you want a more consistent launcher with a more consistent blade for the same price? It really comes down to a preference here, but both will cost you the exact same amount of money, being £29.59 at time of recording. Well, actually, there's a penny difference. The raw Tyranno will cost you an extra penny, but come on, that barely makes a difference. Now, for sub £30, getting everything you need is a pretty good deal. Unfortunately, that's a very niche case. It's going to give you a very sort of low A, high B tier deck all in total if you go for that. Our next recommendation is going to be a little bit of a jump from just under 30 quid to £42, but you do get a significant performance increase. So, I told you you'll be seeing this a lot on this list. You're going to start with Saw Phoenix or Raw Tyranno in the winder launcher, and then our next purchase is again something you're going to be seeing a lot on this list, which is Wand Wizard 160 Rush. Now, this is available from both Amazon and Argos, and will run you £10 because it's a starter set. Really, this winder is kind of a con. It costs you £2 and you're never going to want to use it. But this set is just too good for a beginner to pass up. The blade you get will be Wand Wizard, which is an absolutely excellent blade. It is still meta, it's still one of the heaviest blades you can get, and is an absolutely great blade for stamina builds, and it also makes a really good attack build if you want to do it. The parts that we also get are great. 160 is a lopsided ratchet, which causes attack blades to hit extra hard due to the strange way they behave, and Rush is still an S tier bit used in attack builds. Every single bit here is S tier. Not necessarily all together, but all these parts. As well as that, you're going to want to get this, the Sword Dran and Gale Wyvern dual pack. Unfortunately, these dual packs are going to be where you get a lot of your parts, but there's always going to be a bit of waste. You're always going to have a leftover Beyblade that isn't particularly great. Takara Tomy and Hasbro intentionally release sets where the parts aren't optimally distributed to make it so you have to buy more products. So here, we're going to, unfortunately, Gale Wyvern isn't a particularly good blade, and 380 isn't the best ratchet, but what we do get is a 360 ratchet, the sword drawn blade, the ball bit, and the taper bit, all of which are great bits. Taper is a great all-round bit. It gives good attack power while also preserving some stamina, and ball on Wand Wizard is an extremely powerful combo. So out of this, you're going to want to put the ball bit and the 960 ratchet on Wand Wizard, which will give you Wand Wizard 960 ball. Yeah, go figure. You're going to want to put the 160 and the Rush bit on Saw Phoenix. And with Saw Phoenix, this is again a combo you still see in meta today, is the 160 ratchet on Rush on good attack bits. And finally, you're going to want to put the 360 and taper ratchet on this black sword drawn here. I think that's, which I personally think is a really cool alt colour. So that will give you a string launcher, 3 competitively viable Beyblades, and a Gale Wyvern 380 gear flat to mess around with. I don't think I mentioned that this Gale Wyvern sword drawn part is best found on Amazon. Have seen it in store at the Entertainer, and you might even be able to save some money as they have sales rather frequently. But as it stands, for consistent price as of recording, this will cost you £41.99. Remember, you can build an alternate by substituting Saw Phoenix for the winder launcher and Raw Tyranno. So, an alternative to this build is going to be, it's going to be very similar at a very similar cost. We're going to buy most of the same parts, the Wand Wizard, the Phoenix Wings / Raw Tyranno. But instead of your Gale Wyvern and Sword Dran, you're going to pick up this, which is the Tail Viper Sword Dran combo. Now, you're going to do almost the exact same thing as you did before, getting the Saw Phoenix 160 Rush and the Wand Wizard 960, but instead of ball, we're going to use the orb bit from the Tail Viper. Orb is extremely similar to ball. They both are round with excellent endurance. The only real difference is Orb trades a little bit of its defensiveness for a little bit of extra endurance, but both work excellent on Wand Wizard 960. And out of this you'll get a Sword Dran 360, but on flat instead of taper. So you're basically trading with this Sword Dran combo a little bit of endurance for it to hit a little harder. Also, in place of the black Sword Dran, you'll get this red one with a red ratchet. This one really comes down to a preference. Both this alternative and the one before it are good. I would base this one, if you go for this build, entirely on which one you like the look of better. Because it's the exact same cost at £42, you might as well just go for aesthetics at this point. The difference between flat and taper, while taper is generally considered a slightly better option, flat's still viable, it's still used, still good. So, our next build is going to cost you £43.60, so £1.60 more, and to be honest, it's about the same power level as the build before, but gives you an alternate build. You will get out of it, you'll get 2 really hard-hitting attack types and 1 really great stamina. So, like before, I said you'll see this a few times. You're going to want to start with 1 Wizard, 160 Rush. I recommend getting this from Argos if you've got one nearby, that way there's no delivery cost. Then, while you're in Argos, you're going to want to also pick up this Busterdron 570 Disc Ball. Now, the Busterdron bit is a great, slightly lopsided blade. Remember what we were saying about the 160? It lines up really well with this asymmetrical blade, which gives you some really hard-hitting, devastating impacts with that extended bit. This 570 ratchet, well, 560 would be preferable. 570 is still good on Wand Wizard. Unfortunately, this disc ball, while we really wish we could just stick this on Wand Wizard and then we'd have a complete build, it's not good. While in theory the wide disc would distribute the weight outwards, causing extra stamina, it tends to scrape on the arena floor and cause a lot of friction loss. So, we're without a ball bit. So, the cheapest way to do this is to purchase this blade, Talon Terror. Talon Terror is a terrible blade. It doesn't really sell in stores. On Amazon, it's £6.20. You might even be able to find it cheaper in stores. Unfortunately for us, we don't want the blade or the ratchet. Both aren't exactly great. What we need is this ball bit. There's no real way of getting around it. We kind of need this ball bit. So it's a little bit of extra cost, but out of it, you will get a Wand Wizard on 570 ball, which is a really good combination. A Busterdron on 160 Rush, which is still a meta combination, a meta pick. That is an excellent blade, an absolutely excellent hard-hitting blade. And then, for your final blade, for £8, you're going to want to buy this Killshark 360 Low Flat. You can pick one of these up while you're in Argos for £8, but you can occasionally find them cheaper in Amazon, and in the Entertainer, I've seen them for £6.20, and in Smith's Toys Superstore, I've seen them 2 for £8, so I don't know if you would want to, but you can have 2 of them if you want. And this is great as built, just like with Bike Rock, this can stay because they're essentially the same blade. They're also really hard hitting, so out of this you'll get 2 extremely hard hitting blades and 1 really good endurance Beyblade, and that will cost you £43.60. Unfortunately, the Talon Terror, the Disc Ball, and the 380 ratchet are wasted, so our next build will cost a total of £65. Now, before you come at me in the comments saying that isn't cheap at all, no, you're right, that's not cheap. However, that's because the bulk of that will go into this, the £45 Hasbro Extreme Stadium. While I agree that that's an expensive purchase, I have seen it for £40 in Smith's, and you don't just get the stadium out of this, you also get 2 blades, which I'll cover in a minute, but I can't recommend enough. If you can afford this stadium, I recommend you get it. You might see this, the Bucket Stadium, for much cheaper, but this cannot come unrecommended enough, for lack of a better term. These are hated by the community, they're rated, they don't work properly, you can see plenty of videos on that. It will work if you have absolutely no other option, but I can't stress enough, if you can save or get the Extreme Stadium, even secondhand, just get it. These things are terrible. I haven't personally used the portable stadium, but aside from being really loud, most people say it's better than the bucket stadium, but still isn't great. I mean, it is a portable stadium, but even so, even at the cheaper price point of around, I think this is around £20 to £25, just if you can save for the Extreme Stadium, it will be so much better. So, as mentioned before, the Extreme Stadium, that also comes with a pair of blades. Now, unfortunately, the Tusk Mammoth blade up here is not particularly good in competitive, but on the plus side, the 360 ratchet, the taper bit, the rush bit, the 460, and the drum dagger are all good. They're all perfectly usable. So once you've got this stadium, you're only going to need to make a couple more purchases. Again, we come back to our old friend Saw Phoenix pack, or the Winder Launcher and Raw Tyranno. I did warn you were going to see this a lot in this video. But on top of that, I recommend picking up one of these, the Sting Unicorn pack. You can get this for £8 on Amazon. Occasionally I've seen these discounted in stores, but you're probably going to be paying £8 for this more often than not. Sting Unicorn here is an interesting blade. It's got a beautiful colour scheme. It gives you this really cool semi-transparent white 560 ratchet with an icy blue, and the gear point. Among the gear bits, the gear point is considered one of the better ones. There are still other, there are better bits out there, but it works well enough that I wouldn't automatically discount it from a competitive scenario. So out of this, you're going to want to put your Saw Phoenix on either the 960 or the 360 and the rush bit. You're going to want to put your Sting Unicorn on either the 960 or the 360 ratchet, whichever one you didn't use for Saw Phoenix, or Raw Tyranno if you preferred it, and replace the gear point with the taper bit. Then finally, you're going to want to take the Drawn Dagger from the set and put that on the 560 ratchet we got from Sting Unicorn, as well as the gear point. Or, if you want to give it a bit of extra hard-hitting attack, you can try the gear flat. Drawn Dagger is generally considered to be a good blade, but only when it's relatively new. When the points wear down, a lot of people say it gets less effective. So again, that will run you £65, but you get a lot out of that. One alternative you can do is, instead of Sting Unicorn, get buy this, the Claw Leon. It comes with the 560 and the point bit, which again are both good. I'd say point is a fair little bit of an upgrade from gear point. What essentially you're going to be doing is substituting a slightly worse blade for a slightly better bit. So with this, you're going to want to do much the same thing. You're going to want to put this on taper and put the point bit on the Drawn Dagger. So, with that final recommendation, I'm also going to throw out a few things to consider. Starting with this, Cobalt Dragoon 260 Cyclone. You'll see a lot of people talking about meta combinations with this blade online. One of the interesting things about this blade is its left spin, which means it spins the opposite direction to most blades. Unfortunately, that requires this launcher, which does come with the blade, but boosts the cost of this kit up to £17. You're going to get a launcher that you can't use with anything else if you do that. But if you've got spare cash and you like a gimmick and you like the idea of trying to make this work, stick it on a rush bit with a 60 level ratchet and you'll be good to go. Another thing to consider are these starter kits. These have been around since the beginning and often have some interesting parts. Drawn Sword is actually a fairly good blade when it's new. Again, much like Drawn Dagger. You also get a 360 ratchet, which is good, and a flat bit, which is okay. But what you might be able to do is find these on clearance. A good example of this is I saw this starter kit for Arrow Wizard 460 Ball for £5 free delivery on eBay. While Arrow Wizard isn't great, remember how we said Talon Terror has a ball bit that we want and that costs £6.20? Here you can get a ball bit for a £5. Things like the Drawn Sword might come cheaper. Also, while I was recording this, I saw Very was having a sale on a lot of their Beyblade X stuff. You can see a few things like this Tail Viper Drawn Sword dual pack is down to a tenner, and other things like the Sword Drawn kit and One Wizard are also reduced. It's always worth just shopping around. If you want an arena, but you can't justify spending £45 on one new, maybe you're in a really tight position, maybe that's why you're watching this video, I do recommend checking out Facebook Marketplace. You often see these Beyblade X arenas for way under retail price. In this instance, there's one here in Buckingham, if you happen to be near there. It's £20, and it looks like they still have the Drawn Dagger and Tuskmouth, but even then it's the arena you really want. Again here, there's this one here near Romford. It's extremely scratched up, as you can see, but it certainly would still work. And if you just wanted to practice for £10 if you were nearby, it's always worth checking out Facebook Marketplace. One final thing to note is that the Takara Tomy starter sets come with a proper launcher. If you can justify the cost, it might be worth picking one up. An example here is Silver Wolf, which is going for the £35 to £40 mark at the moment. Silver Wolf is a excellent blade. It sees competitive use. And one thing I'm going to suggest outright is always check online. Reddit has great information on builds people have tried out. Nezuma has a excellent video on parts tier list that I'm going to link. But just in this example, you can see Silver Wolf. If you can justify the cost for a meta Beyblade that comes with a launcher, while it is expensive, it does help out if you're trying to keep costs down, if you can justify it. While it's not exactly the most tested thing yet, as it's still relatively new, Scorpio Sting is the second to newest release from Japan, and not only is it still relatively cheap, the blade is heavy. While it's got very little testing, the sheer weight of it, putting it even heavier than Rod, I sincerely doubt it's going to get no use. If you do want to pick one of these up, it not only comes with the better launcher, but it also comes with the new slightly longer ripcord, which is going to give you just an extra bit of power, so that's another thing to consider if you can justify a little bit of extra cost. One last thing I'm going to mention is this set, Saw Phoenix 580 Hexa. Hexa is an amazing defense bit, and you already know that Saw Phoenix is a great attack bit. 580 isn't great, but for a £8 booster pack this is amazing. The only reason I haven't talked about this is this thing is so in demand, it's impossible to find online in the UK. In stores, you've got almost no chance. I'm only mentioning this because if you do happen to see this, snatch it up. But as of time of recording, this thing is near impossible to find. So, thank you for watching. I hope this has helped you out if you're a beginner. I will periodically release update videos on this. The only other recommendation I have is Google is your friend. Looking up combinations that work well, looking at videos will help. But above all that, get out there. Tournaments are great places, and you meet some awesome people that can give you advice and their personal experiences. It's always worth trying, and they're always good fun. This community is amazing. I've actually got a video on the first tournament I recorded. The Beyblade community in the UK, at least, is an amazingly open and happy place, and you can also wear fun costumes and play characters if you want. Anyway, especially if you're new to the hobby, I hope this helps you with some builds. If you've got any other recommendations or you've seen other discounts, please drop them in the comments and help anybody who's starting out. Anyway, thanks for watching, have a good one, and good luck out there. 3, 2, 1, go shoot!